Hey Nerds, Dynasty Nerds here, back again this week talking NFC buys. We're going to dig deep on some young guys, maybe some old guys, and see what players we think are really good value for your Dynasty team.
You might even get a chance to watch Garrett tweet something out.
Yeah, and the results are fantastic.
Yeah, I'm tired of his audience pussyfooting around the real good buys.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That's good.
Ready, set, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garrett Price.
How's it going?
It's going swell as we slowly inch through February here. We got, the Senior Bowl just completed. We're starting to get a little bit closer to NFL Combine. And once the NFL Combine starts, we start talking these rookie analysis and really break them down. I'm really excited about that. A lot to talk about.
Lots.
A lot of quarterbacks, a boatload of tight ends. Like if you have second and third round picks, you're going to be very, very happy in tight end premium leagues. And not even in tight end premium leagues if you're in a regular league, because who doesn't need a good tight end? Everybody does. Me, my wife, we all need them. So it's a good time to be playing Dynasty.
You and your wife.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're always playing Dynasty. It's kind of like we started our own Dynasty back about 15 years ago, and it's still going strong. It's a good league.
Yeah,
a good league.
Yeah.
Drafted a couple kids.
No one's dropped out?
No one's dropped out? It's all
Not
good?
yet, luckily.
All the original members are still there.
Dude, every time I try to offer these trades for the Josh Allens and Pat Mahomes out there, I keep getting rejected. Because I got Tom Brady. The GOAT.
The GOAT.
you go.
There you
Oh,
go.
look at me.
Look at
I hope-
you
I hope
pulling
she
it back together.
I hope this is the one podcast out of 1,000 she listens to. Hey, babe.
Somebody send it to her.
Tagged at, what's your Twitter? At Ashley Dotson?
Now you just ruined it by not knowing what her
I don't know.
is.
She comments on my Twitter comments sometimes. Sometimes she's like, you're not funny. And I'm like, all right.
Thanks,
That's fair.
babe.
That's just an opinion.
And your opinion sucks. Tom Brady. So today we're talking AFC buys.
Hold
right?
on. Tom Brady. We forgot to mention that he retired.
He gone.
He retired last year.
Okay.
You retired again.
But he also accidentally played this whole year.
I mean, kind of. I mean, he wasn't great.
Right.
But, he played. But yeah, he's gone. What a good draft pick that would be. I mean, that's what's great. I mean, how long did Tom Brady play for? 24 years?
I don't know if it was quite that long. I think 21.
It was a lot.
Say 20 years. Like, that's what's the beauty of Dynasty. Like, I always talked about, like, how I had Drew Brees on my roster for, 16 years he was on my team. For his whole career. I had LaDainian Tomlinson his entire career, Reggie Wayne his entire career. Like, to have Tom Brady, if you start to have any player, say you drafted Pat Mahomes his rookie year, and you have Pat Mahomes for 20 years. God, that's what, like, makes Dynasty great. You know what I mean? Like that.
Absolutely.
And, like, how those, and not just, like,
It changes your rooting interest, even.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Definitely.
You guys see my room out there. I have Drew Brees autographed helmets. I have LaDainian Tomlinson authentic autographed helmets. Like, my love for these players is mostly because I literally followed their career from their collegiate level to the end, like their entire till they're in the Hall of Fame. That's how far I followed from. And that's what's great about it. Like, it grows the game of football for you. It grows outside of the teams that you love. It makes it more of a player-based game for you outside of your flavored team.
Flavored.
Yeah. I like
This
lemonade.
is a cherry team.
So it's just that longevity of it and the passion that you have for that player and what you appreciate throughout his entire career. It's fun. It makes it that much more fun.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Brady came in the league, Michigan guy. That was like right out of when I was out of Ohio State, basically. So I didn't have a lot of love for that guy when he first came into the league. Obviously, over time, that kind of stuff wears off. I mean, after 20-something years, you just have to respect the guy. He's done it. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever. But from a dynasty standpoint, he was on like the same team in our league for probably 10 years. But then he started moving. He was this guy that was older that he would just bounce from championship team to championship team. I think I paid a couple of seconds for him at one point, and then I won a few championships. I shipped him off. I got a couple of seconds back. So these are the type of players that they just hold value as well to these championship quality teams, and you'll see them start to kind of float around if they get off the original person's roster. That's when they're kind of guns for hire type of guys.
They start moving around the league.
Everyone will get a piece of that.
I don't know if they do this yet, but PrizePicks should do over-unders on how long someone's career will be.
Who?
That would be an interesting long term.
That would be.
Dude, it's funny. I thought about like that. I was like, dude, what if you had like a site that you bet on that person, like it's a stock of them becoming a Hall of Famer, right? Like you said, hey,
Hall of Famer bust.
I was trying to think of it. Yeah, it's like Hall of Famer bust. And like the earlier you get on, the bigger the reward it pays out, right? Like it costs X amount to buy in, but like every year they play, the more their stats go up and down, kind of like a stock market.
Sure.
But they have like the game is, I literally was thinking about this the other day, like I'm always trying to think of new games for Dynasty. It's like, I love the name, Hall of Famer bust, right?
There you go.
So instead of HOF, HOB.
HOFOB.
HOFOB.
This isn't the alphabet game, but same thing. It's
Hall
like
of bust.
It's like, okay, like if you buy in Tom Brady now, it pays -1.
Right.
Sure. Some of those lines. But
You won't make much money. But speaking of prize picks, though, we're still talking about them. They're still doing incredible, incredible things. And we're doing incredible things with this incredible site. That's right. This week for the Super Bowl, 3 people.
Not 1, not 2, but 3.
3 people will win $1,000 in their account on prize picks. That's right. $1,000. All you got to do is you got to make a lineup. We're gonna factor in the Super Bowl here because that's what's best. But it doesn't have to be football.
they have a free pick this week.
They do. They have a free square, so you're automatically getting one. It's Patrick Mahomes half a yard. Will he get half a yard? Now
Passing
yard. That's correct. Now he could get sacked on the first play and
Be done.
So I mean, I guess there's some risk, but I'll take that bet. I'll take the bet that he gets half a yard. That's what you can do, but you don't have to just do football. You could get on there. You could say, I want to pair it with, will Kyrie Irving now on the Dallas Mavericks get over 25.5 points in his first game?
Will LeBron James be the all-time NBA scorer?
I did place some wagers on that tonight.
Two.
Will he cross the threshold this evening or not?
LBJ.
Just saying. Some wagers on there.
Can you help out Garrett one more time?
Please, Braun.
June
Never asked you for
16th,
anything.
2016, one of the best days of my life on
I'm
Father's
sorry
Day.
for giving away your shoes back in 2012 or whatever it was. But go head over to PrizePicks, then go to our Twitter page, post a screenshot of you making a wager. Then, as long as you used promo code NERDS, you have to use promo code NERDS. As long as you did that at one point, then you're good.
Yeah, so if you need to sign up at PrizePicks right now, use the promo code NERDS, and all you got to do is post your screenshot. You can put $10 in there.
Yeah.
And post a screenshot of your bet. And if you have a chance to get in the giveaway of winning $1,000, we gave away $500 last week. We gave 3 people $300 the week before and $400 the week before that. So big climax here towards the end.
Absolutely.
With PrizePicks. So it was a good football season. We decided to give away a lot of money for the Super Bowl. It's $3,000. Get down there, check out our Twitter, and you're going to be very happy. Now, you guys want to talk about some AFC buys?
No,
Yes, sir.
I want to talk some NFC buys.
Oh, yeah. Dang it.
Garrett will
I
probably
already
do
messed
some
up the conference last
He'll
week.
probably slip in an AFC on
On
us
the
today.
Nerd Show, doing AFC, and he's over there talking NFC guys. Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin, which was a good sell.
Yeah.
Just
We
wrong
explained
conference.
it. If you're a nerd, remember, you'll get that episode. So, when you talk buys and you talk sells, sometimes it's easier to talk buys this time of year because sells, the best time to sell is in season, right? Like people are talking like, oh, it's a sell. By the time the year wraps up and we're sitting here, everybody's a year older. They're going to be 9 months older when the season starts. It's easy to sit here and say, oh, sell this running back. Well, yeah, everybody's going to say sell this. Dalvin Cook, Zeke Elliott, all the old guys. Yeah, of course there's sells in Dynasty fantasy football.
absolutely.
You can make a case to sell anybody that's over the age of 26 years old, 27 years old in Dynasty. But buy windows are different, right? Because that window's open a little bit longer. The best time to sell a running back is when? In season.
Right in
when
season.
John Doe's running back goes down.
Right before those playoffs, man. That's where you really maximize them.
That's right.
Key max. I paid a first and second for Dalvin Cook. I was going for a title.
Right.
Thanks, second place.
Whoops.
Could have done better, Dalvin.
Could have done better, Rich.
I believed in you. DeAndre Hopkins, why you got to hurt your knee?
Oh, man, that was a bummer.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
Things happen.
So let's talk about some buys here.
do it.
I think we got some good ones to talk about.
We do.
You guys want me to go first?
Sure. Why
Rich,
not?
Would it be the first time? That guy talks too much. Well, not sorry.
Sorry, not even sorry.
Well, I've said the same thing. Love you, Tom Brady. All right.
I'm gonna start calling your wife Tom, and she's gonna look at me so confused.
Hey, Tom. What did Rich do now?
It's like TB12.
Calm down. End up like Giselle. Threats.
Get you nowhere.
Yeah, I'm not making $35 million.
Tom, loved your underwear ad.
Ooh, that looks nice.
That would be awkward.
I don't think she wants that either.
I think she'd like hearing that.
So my first buy of the week is Isaiah Hodgins for the New York Giants. And this is a player right now that in Dynasty, you're not paying much for him. Like he's going for 24 seconds. He's a throw-in player. Come draft day, there'll probably be somebody there at the top of the third that somebody's going to really like that you can get Isaiah Hodgins for. And yes, Isaiah Hodgins is a risk buy-in, but so is anybody. Like anybody's a risk at any time. So what I like about Isaiah Hodgins here is, from week he didn't even start joining the team until week 10 is when he came over, when he got cut from the Buffalo Bills. He got brought up because a couple players got hurt for the Bills. Then they traded for Nyheim Hines. Some came off and they cut him. Yep. The Giants bring him in. So from week 10 through week 17, because he didn't play week 18, his games with the Giants, he was wide receiver 21 overall in PPR formats. He had a total of 8 catches for 101 yards, though, and 0 touchdowns in his first 3 games because he wasn't even a starter at that point.
Right.
He was sitting behind like Darius Slayton, Richie James there. So he didn't do a whole lot for those first 3 games.
Yep.
But after that, he was wide receiver 13 overall for the final 5 games, averaging 15.2 points per game and scored a touchdown in 4 out of 5 games in that stretch. And in this playoff game, his first playoff game, 8 catches, 105 yards, and 1 touchdown. So what do these stats mean? The stats mean that he has a really good rapport with Daniel Jones. That showed.
Yep.
And what's nice is what's good for him to come in is, Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator for the Bills, so he already had a good foundation on that system there. Yeah. So when he came in, he kind of had a good grasper. He knew, I know he was quoted saying, like, I felt really good going in there. Brian Daboll believed in me. I signed with the team. He's FaceTiming me. He's talking to me, and I just felt I had to get better. And I just clicked with Daniel Jones. And on top of that, everybody there is a free agent. Everybody. Kenny Galladay is going to be a post-June 1st cut. He's gone. That money's long gone.
Yep.
Everybody else is a free agent.
Sterling Shepard, gone, right?
Gone. Darius Slayton, gone. Richie James, free agent, gone. Isaiah Hodgins, however, is a restricted free agent, which means the Giants can retain him for a 1-year deal, and it's only for $870,000. So to me,
I looked on Spot Right, and I think he's got 1 more year until he's an exclusive right free agent, according to Spot Right.
He's an exclusive rights free agent.
Okay,
yes.
And those are like the easiest to retain. It basically just gives you,
Do you want him? Yes or no?
Exactly. Right of first refusal, basically.
And it might give him even a longer term deal because they need somebody here. He had a really good year for them. So right now it's such a cheap salary with a really good rapport. The fact they're going to pay Saquon Barkley, they're going to pay Daniel Jones. Like this is right up their alley what they're going to need. And who he's going to compete with is Wan'Dale Robinson. And I like Wan'Dale Robinson. I was a big fan of his tape. I like Wan'Dale Robinson way more than these 2 guys who are Calvin Austin guys, and I was Wan'Dale Robinson guy. So
we'll see how this one works out. It's not like
I think I still had Wan'Dale Robinson over.
No, false, fake news.
I definitely had Calvin Austin above him.
I was going to say, I didn't. I'll check my nerd scores. We can see for sure.
Okay, because I remember I was like, dude, I like Wan'Dale Robinson, but I was like he's like Calvin Austin but better. That's what I remember saying in the podcast. I was like, why do they don't like Wan'Dale more? But anyways,
Calvin Austin was injured last year, never got a chance to play.
So was Wan'Dale Robinson towards ACL. We can love him. ACL tore.
We'll see.
It can break your heart. It can break your knee. So he's going to extend it. This is a guy who came in and just really tore it up. And what's nice is he offers he's the complete opposite of Wan'Dale Robinson, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, 5'8", 185 pounds, super fast,
super quick. Hodgins is more that big physical presence.
He 6'4",
exactly what he did at Oregon State, right? Like the 6'4", 210-pound red zone threat, and it showed with all those touchdowns there that he scored. So, and I know they have Daniel Bellinger as well, could be a red zone threat, but this is what he gets with Hodgins is you get a really good upside. Will he be wide receiver 13 next year? That's not what I'm saying. But he has a really good chance to come in here. I expect the Giants to possibly sign somebody, if not draft somebody. Mm-hmm. But even if they draft somebody,
I think they will too.
That rapport he already has with Daniel Jones, there's a very good chance you could trade for the number 1 receiver on the Giants today for a 3rd round pick.
3rd round draft pick. And that's not out of the question. I'm with you there. I was looking into the same thing. I actually started doing research, and I came up with all the same numbers that you did on Isaiah Hodgins before you called him and said, "Hey, this is gonna be my buy."
And you were like, "Dang it!"
I was like, "Oh, cool, yeah." Because I wasted about a half hour of my life. But he's a very special. I wouldn't say he's very special, but he's been in this same system. I know he's new to New York, but he's been in the same system for his whole career basically, and he's starting to show, in this third year in the NFL, that he can do it. And all he needed was kind of an opportunity, and it looks like he's finally going to get it with New York. And like you said, with them needing to pay other players, they're not going to have a bunch of spendable cash this year. They're going to have some cap hit involved with getting rid of Galladay, and then they're going to be paying a bunch of other guys. They're going to have to allocate some funds, I guess, a little bit cheaply here on the wide receivers. So he has a pretty good shot, I think, at being the guy.
I mean, coming to the team to week 10, when the year was all said and done, this was somebody who ranked fourth on the team in total targets at 42. He was fourth on the team in receptions, number one in team, tied for first with touchdowns, only 4, but still tied for first on the team. He came in more than half the season later and still dominated pretty much the statistical line for the New York Giants. Mm-hmm. And for a team that is looking to propel itself from that first round loss in the playoffs to, did they lose in the first round? Second round. They won their first game. Mm-hmm. And to propel that, to try and get to the NFC Championship game, they need a lot of people that are familiar with what they had going on building off of last year. So it doesn't matter who they bring in, that wouldn't really deter me. If anything, it makes Isaiah Hodgins even a cheaper value buy. If they traded for DeAndre Hopkins, they have Wan'Dale Robinson, like, I guess you don't worry about Isaiah Hodgins. No, that's not the case. You always want to have that rapport with that quarterback. That's something you cannot underestimate. Because just like we fall in love with the running backs and the amount of carries they're going to get, same thing for targets and wide receivers. We want to be that first look for the quarterback, right? Like, how many targets a game is he seeing? How many opportunities does he have to score fantasy football points, right? Because that's all we're looking for here is just opportunity to score as many points as possible. I think Isaiah Hodgins, for the cost right now, is probably one of the best buys you go out there and get in Dynasty. The price will not set you back if it fails, but if it hits, what looks like an overpay today is an underpay tomorrow.
What looks like an underpay is going to be a grossly underpay. I mean, a third-round draft pick is crazy if you can get a guy that's going to be anywhere in your starting lineup. I mean, that's fantastic, especially if he's that young.
Right. If he ends up in the top 24 receiver, grand slam, top 36, home run.
Absolutely.
So, Matt, who do you got for us?
All right, so my guy, we're going to move from one kind of young, kind of unknown guy to another. I'm going with Rasheed Shaheed with the speed.
You had to do it.
I had to.
Dr. Seuss is back.
Oh no, God, not again. All right, so this guy's he's kind of like the other rookie wide receiver, right? This past year for New Orleans, he's a little bit older, 24 years old, listed at 6 foot, 180 pounds, and this guy's a guy he's known for his speed, his burst. He makes big plays, and that's kind of how he came onto the scene this past season. He didn't do much of anything the first five games of the season. That was kind of, Michael Thomas was coming back, all that kind of stuff. Then Michael Thomas got nicked up, and then Olave got nicked up and stuff like that. So he finally got his chance around week 6, and really week 6, week 7, week 8, he was kind of just getting his feet wet. Wasn't getting a bunch of targets or anything like that. He got actually his first 5 weeks, he got 1 target, 3 target. 0 targets, 1 target, and two targets. So I think that was 6. So he was
just out there getting exercise.
He was out there getting exercise, but he was making big plays even in those limited opportunities. His first week, he got 1 target for no catches, but he got 1 carry, 44 yards and a touchdown. The next week, he got 1 target, 1 catch, 53 yards and a touchdown. So he was making good with the limited opportunities he was getting. And it wasn't until around, let me see what it was,
when Michael Thomas went down.
Michael Thomas was officially down.
That's week 4.
No. When he actually started getting like a good amount of targets was around week 11. No, week 12 is when he got 3, and then 13 it was 4, and then they had their bye, and then it was 4, 5, 6 to finish out the season. It ended up by the end of the season, it was him and Olave that were like the top 2 guys on the team.
Sure.
And it started where he was getting 3, Olave was getting 9 targets. By the end, it was 6 for Shaheed and 5 for Olave. They were almost evening out towards the end. Now I don't expect that to be something long term where he's getting just as many targets as Olave, because I do think Olave is the better player. But for the price you're going to pay, I couldn't even find him in the trade finder because people aren't even trading for him because no one even knows who this guy is. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He's like that much of an unknown that there aren't any trade values out there. I think you can get this guy probably for a 4th round draft pick pretty easily. On draft day, probably a 5th round draft pick. You can get him like, hey, yeah, just throw in Shaheed here. Yeah, you can you can draft in this spot. But he's a young, explosive guy on an offense that they have. Talking about the other, who were we just talking about?
Derek Carr got. Oh wait,
no. The Giants. The Giants are starved. They're starved, and they have other people to pay. New Orleans is starved for wide receivers. Michael Thomas they've restructured that so that he can get out the door.
Oh, they're gonna pay him $31 million, Marsh?
No,
really?
Jarvis Landry's as old as my grandma. As far as wide receivers go in the NFL,
in wide receiver years,
and the biggest point is New Orleans is $55 million, projected to be $55 million over the cap next year. They do not have a lot of money to spend. If the rumors are true about them possibly bringing in Derek Carr, that's going to leave even less money for them to spend elsewhere.
So he's going in tomorrow for sure.
Right. He is going in, and we'll see what happens with that. They've given permission for him to go to New Orleans and check out the facility and do all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But that number is only going to get worse if he's on the books, and that really leaves them with nothing to go out and spend at that position. And with a couple of talented rookies and a nice tight end, I think they could get away without going out and spending any money at that position. Maybe drafting a guy late or something like that and bringing somebody else in on the cheap. But that leaves Shaheed in a very nice position, and like I said, basically free at this point.
And I read something today after the Derek Carr news broke because they were saying about the money situation that New Orleans could easily free up. I said for anybody making over $2 million, they could free up $93 million in cap space. Like they have the structures and contracts.
They can keep kicking the can down. They're gonna have to pay. They're gonna have to pay eventually. And
we've been saying that for 3 years.
We really have.
Remember the big Saints guy? He's probably listening right now, telling us, "You guys have no idea. You're like the Saints could easily do this and this." And we're like, "Yeah, you're right."
They can,
but it also hasn't worked out for them over the past few years. Like they've done all this, and
they're holding this thing together with duct tape and chewing gum and all this kind of stuff. They need to like get their arms.
It's a guy that has a dynasty team on paper, looks really good, but it's really old, and then he trades his first and ends up being the 4th overall pick. And you're like, oh,
his 2 starting running backs get hurt week 3 and 4.
But I got Olave, but you gave up Bijan, but I got Olave. So. But I like the young nucleus at the receiver. Juwan Johnson, Chris Olave obviously is a future star,
right?
And Shaheed, the speed in that offense again, just opportunity. What Matt's pointing out here as well is he was given opportunity as a rookie with Andy Dalton, and he produced, right? So when you're given an opportunity and you produce, that opens the door for more opportunity. And what he has in New Orleans because of their cap situation, then they bring a guy like Derek Carr is, hey. We have guys that work with Juwan Johnson, Rashid, and Olave. So why do we need to go out and get anything else? We can bring back other guys on the roster that are still okay. I don't even forget what's his face's name, even though I had on my dynasty team for 5 years straight out of
I'm talking about Adam Troutman?
No, Tre'Quan Smith.
Tre'Quan Smith.
Yeah. Oh, the receiver.
What Florida? FSU, FCU?
It wasn't FSU, no. It was definitely
Florida State.
Central Florida?
Florida Atlantic?
UCF. Central Florida?
I think so.
All these acronyms.
Tre'Quan Smith. I don't remember where he went. Too many.
He went to college.
Yeah. Good for him. I'm glad he got an education. So, not a bad pick.
So anyway, Rasheed Shaheed.
Yeah, no, I really like that pick. It's one of those under the radar moves that you can get for almost free. They draft capital wise, they don't have their 10 overall pick. They do have the San Francisco pick at 30, so it does move them back a little bit. But most of the mocks I've seen, it shows how many other holds that they have.
Right.
They're more than likely not going to be spending a premium pick on a wide receiver, especially a year after already spending a premium pick on a receiver. So chances are that draft capital is going to be used elsewhere. there's a very good chance he's still in one of those top 2 or 3 wide receiver spots next year. Nothing but free money, because even if you think, okay, well, maybe the year after they get somebody, okay, well, then trade him after the year.
These are you
move up a round or 2.
Are no cost, no repercussion trades.
Yes.
You know, like giving up a 4th or 5th round pick for Rasheed, it doesn't matter if he hits or miss. It really does not matter. Like, will there be a player like they're in the 4th? Maybe one guy in the whole 4th round might hit. Maybe 2, maybe not. But it does not matter. I mean, these are the moves you make in Dynasty, like at this time of the year, because you're trying to acquire these guys that don't have a big name. They have an opportunity. It's kind of like, you know, when you see Victor Cruz puts up a big preseason game and he puts a couple together and then he doesn't make the team, but you traded for him in Dynasty. But then the following year, he puts up another preseason game and all of a sudden he makes the team and he's a wide receiver 1 for 2 years. And yeah, it's a short-lived window, but you paid nothing. You paid nothing.
Pure profit.
Yep, and sometimes those cheap investments in Dynasty are so great to make because you have no anchor to the boat, right? Like you're just free flown out there. So like anytime you can just move on, right? Like it's not like you're not Tom Hanks in Castaway. You're not screaming out for Wilson. You're not. Yeah, you're waving goodbye. Like, hey, it was a good time while it lasted, Wilson. I already gave you the high five. It's in blood. So it's nice to have that because sometimes you need those players on your roster as well that you can that are just loosey goosey, right? Like
cup 8. See you later.
And you don't have to worry about it because like. You get these players on your roster that you invested some draft capital and you did draft them, or they do show some shines. And like, you know, we made an argument before about like, do you have to bring people up on your taxi squad? And you're like, well, who are you to say you have to cut somebody, right? And that's the argument of why you allow 2 years on your taxi squad is like, because to bring somebody up, you have to cut somebody. So if somebody's doing well, who's another owner say you have to cut somebody? Right. And I use it as my oldest league as an example. And Matt and I were talking about it. This league is going on 18 years, 19 years old. And my roster just happened to be stacked with, like, again, not studs, but the one player I used as a reference before he did anything, I was like, the only player I can cut right now that on my roster I feel like I can cut would be Josh Reynolds. I was like, I don't want to cut Josh Reynolds because I still kind of think he could do something given the right opportunity. And what happened last year? Josh Reynolds was given an opportunity. He produced. Was it a high level? No. But I ended up starting Josh Reynolds in multiple weeks because I had to because my guys were hurt.
You had to start him in your championship game this past
year.
And
I started Josh, because DeAndre Hopkins got a boo-boo in his knee. I had to start Josh Reynolds in my championship league. So it's like...
I mean, you lost.
Because of Josh Reynolds.
Moral of the story is cut all these guys right away.
But it's nice to have these guys that are fluid on your roster that bring new guys in, right? Because like to bring somebody in... You have to cut somebody.
Moral of the story, you should have cut him.
Should have cut him.
No, because I would have had nobody to start.
You would have had somebody better. Come on.
I looked at my roster. I had nobody better than Josh Reynolds in total points.
Laquan Treadwell would have got it.
Yeah, I was thinner than Devontae Smith on there in that position. So,
all right.
Hit me with your good stuff.
All right. Next guy, little bit bigger name than the last 2 we've talked about.
Boo.
But still not like this huge name.
Bigger's not
Alberto.
Especially because that is a very long name. Especially because I talked about all these different mocks that I looked through last week, and I looked through 9 different mocks. This player, the earliest he was drafted at his position was wide receiver 56.
Oh, that's bad.
The latest was 71.
Ooh.
That's worse.
That's Rasheed Shaheed territory right there, man.
But this name is much better than that. Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney was going in the 11th round, 12th round, 13th round of a lot of these startups. And I was puzzled as to why does everybody hate him now? And I looked in the trade finder, and there's a lot of 3rd round picks. Somebody traded Greg Dortch in 2/4 and got Darnell Mooney. People apparently are over Darnell Mooney. Now,
I'm over Darnell Mooney.
But the question is...
What team does he play for? Just kidding. Go ahead.
But the question is, should you be? Because 2 years ago, when it was Justin Fields' first season, he was wide receiver 23. So he was a low-end wide receiver 2 years ago.
That was his rookie year, right?
That would have been his second year.
Okay.
That would have been his second year.
2 years ago, Tom Brady was a QB1.
That's right.
Now he's not even in the league anymore.
Your wife's not in the league anymore?
I love you, babe.
Last year, the year started off terrible for the passing offense. They literally just didn't throw the ball. If you remember, there was the super rainy game, and then they threw it like 8 times the next game. And so all of the pass catching numbers were skewed. And then Darnell Mooney got hurt at the end of the year. So I think people quickly forgot. But after week 3, when they started throwing it at a much more regular pace, he was still averaging 12 points per game. Darnell Mooney, even though I think there is a chance that they bring in another receiver, there's not a lot of free agency this year.
They gave up the 32nd pick for Chase Claypool.
Yes, and that's the other tricky part is their second round pick that would have been the prime opportunity to take a receiver is now in Pittsburgh.
It would have been a first round pick.
It would have basically been a first round pick. So yes, they're probably going to trade down from 1, but their target seems to be defense. They're wanting to stay within the first 5 or 6 picks. There's a lot of guys on defense they like, and I don't know that there's any receivers worthy of going inside of the top 6 there in this draft. So
definitely not.
So if that happens, that means their first pick with a real shot at being a wide receiver is pick 54. That's the pick that they got from the Baltimore Ravens. And with this shallow of a receiving class, we're talking about Zay Flowers. We're talking about Josh Downs. We're talking about Rashid Rice. Like we're talking about like these types of players that are not wide receiver 1. So chances are he is still going to be the top pass catcher on this team, whether either him or Cole Kmet are going to be the top pass catcher more than likely again this season. So I think this is an excellent time to get in there and go after Mooney. Like one of the highest pays that I saw was a 24-second. The other one was a 23-second, but you got Mooney and a third back. So he's going incredibly cheap. He is a very solid wide receiver 3 for a fantasy football team. And if he's your wide receiver 4 or 5, you're a championship caliber team.
I wouldn't pay a third for Mooney.
What?
Nah, I feel like the Bears have so much money they can spend
on who? Who's available?
They could probably trade for I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if possibly they include in the trade down if they try to acquire a receiver and trade on the first round pick. If they traded for DeAndre Hopkins, it wouldn't surprise me. If they traded for Mike Evans, it wouldn't surprise. If they traded for a receiver, it wouldn't surprise me because they got the money for it to help Justin Fields, again a veteran in that receiver room.
Mm-hmm. I think they're the top in cap space, and it's not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah, they have tons.
98 million. The next closest is Atlanta at 56.
But what are they going to give up?
I don't know.
That's the problem with a trade is they'd have to give up something. They don't have anything to give up.
I think it might be something trade out the first overall pick. It's a possibility of getting it. And if not, when they trade out the first round pick, they're probably going to get somebody's first. They're probably going to get their second. They're probably going to get their first next year too. So they will have another second round pick. They can use that to trade up and grab a guy. Or I don't know. I have a hard time believing that the Bears, for a team that want to commit to Justin Fields and see his development and see how rough that receiving room was last year, go into this season with that core. Like they've already committed to Chase Claypool. They have to try to make that work because they gave up the 32nd pick for him. Essentially,
could this be like I know it sounds crazy. Could this be like a T. Higgins landing spot where they can't pay him? And
if they can have what they need to get him,
yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility. But even for me, even if he's their wide receiver 2, I still think giving up a third is easily worth it for me.
Yeah, if it's a late third, I wouldn't hate it. It's just, I don't know. I've also not been a really big Mooney guy. Like I mean, we've said in the show multiple times, I feel like Mooney's just, I feel like he's a really good NFL wide receiver 3. That's what I feel he is. Like I feel like he's a poor man's Donovan Peoples-Jones almost. You know what I mean? Like that's what I kind of feel about Mooney. And just, so I think for an NFL team, he's fine. Mm-hmm. From a dynasty aspect, like it's just not something really like that makes me salivate, right? Like he's not Tom Brady.
He feels like
he's
not in the bedroom rubbing my leg telling me I'm beautiful.
He feels like Hollywood Higgins to me. You know what I mean? Like they're good on their teams. If in a pinch,
Higgins has never been a wide receiver 2 for fantasy football.
I know.
Mooney has. Mooney has.
Higgins, I think if he had that kind of opportunity, he might have been able to, but he just never got the opportunity to be the only person that could catch a football on a team. I'm not a big.
It's Tom Brady.
I think Mooney. I think Mooney is a replacement level type of guy for fantasy purposes. I'm with Rich on that.
Strong disagree.
Yeah, it's just he just doesn't move the needle much for me. That's what it boils down to. I just don't think he's special. I think you can get Mooney's. I think at the right price, it's not a bad buy.
Let me ask you this: Would you rather have Isaiah Hodgins or Darnell Mooney?
Mooney easily.
I would fall on the other side of that because there's just more
All
upside.
right, I'm going to tweet it.
Don't fall, just stand up. Step over the line.
Just be a man.
And I would definitely rather have Rasheed Shaheed.
Yeah, like the upside.
And all that speed.
Well, at least that has like some opportunity. I don't know. I'm
going to tweet out all three of these guys right now, and we're going to see
who'd rather have
what the people say.
My vote is Isaiah Hodgins.
My vote is Rashid Shaheed.
You're drunk.
I bet Darnell Mooney comes in last place.
What do we want to bet on this?
He's coming in last by a mile. No one even knows who the dude is, man. Until after this podcast.
I know, but I think somebody's still picking him even not knowing what he is. Because he sounds like he's got speed.
Oh, my God.
Because of his name.
It sounds like he sounds fast.
While Garrett tweets it out, let me tell you about our friends over at FFPC. FFPC, you guys have heard of them. You know, they started in 2010. Largest high-stakes dynasty community you're going to find in the world right now. They have over 1,000 active leagues running from $77 up to $2,500 per team. You know, this is a website that has never had a dynasty league fail. I'm going to say that for the next 51 weeks to let you know, because that's how important it is for me to talk about FFPC, is how they've never had a league fold. And that's so important when it comes to fantasy football. Dynasty fantasy football is because you commit long-term and you want to make sure that commitment that you make is protected. And it's so hard to do these days. With how the game of Dynasty is growing at a rapid pace. You get people that come in, they go all in for the first year, then they lose, they trade away their draft capital, and they bounce. And you're like, what is this nonsense?
They go all in with Tom Brady, and then they got to get out.
Yeah, here I am 17 years later. And, you know, what FFPC is, they give you that comfort of knowing that you are protected there. And they have so many different formats and so many different ways and games they can play on there. It's a truly special site you got to go to. It's myffpc.com. And if you use the promo code NERDS, you're going to get $25 off of any entry or any team you buy on there. And right now, the best thing to do is, because they haven't opened up their new leagues yet, is go look at their orphans. They have orphans you can buy at a discounted price. Some go for a little bit more. And these are teams that you can go on there right now. They're first come, first serve. And they're coming up new every day. My FFPC, go to their orphan page, and they're going to have all these teams listed with the buy-in for the league and what you could buy the team for. So if you're interested in taking over a team, joining a new league, a high-stakes league, that you can look at the draft capital, you feel like you could work with that team, that they are the site for you. If you want to start a new league, they are the site for you. myffpc.com. Go there right now. Check out the orphans. Use the promo code NERDS, and you're going to save $25 off any team on there. So if you find a $77 team, $70 team, you're going to get it for $50. If the going price is $50 for that $70 team, because somebody's just trying to offload it, you're going to get it for $25.
Ooh, yeah.
And nothing's like that free, like a good discounted first year to make some moves.
Yes.
Get out there, make some moves, turn into a championship. Thank me later. myffpc.com. Now, my next buy. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
Do you have your seatbelt on?
I don't, because I'm in a chair.
Yeah, they don't come with seatbelts.
My chair in my car is a seatbelt.
But we're not in a car.
How do you know?
Maybe they are listening. I am not. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. I hope you guys are wearing your seatbelts.
Yes, definitely.
I saw some commercial today when they outlawed DUIs. It was on Twitter. And it was like they're in some southern state. And like, this is ridiculous, infringing on my freedom. You mean I'm supposed to go to work for 11 hours, 12 hours a day, and I can't crack a cold one in my car? What kind of country is this? I was like, this is real life. This was a news report. Then there's some lady in a truck with her kids in the front seat with like a piece of Play-Doh on the bumper in case it got an accident or something. It wasn't really Play-Doh, but that's what I interpret it as. It's like, next, what's going to happen next? We're a communist country? I'm like, oh my goodness, she's driving with her baby, arguing why she can't have a beer while she's driving. Oh, the good old days, right?
When was that?
Whenever they made DUIs illegal.
Okay.
Oh, I'll have to look for it on Twitter.
It had to have been in the 70s.
I should have liked it or retweeted it. I was just dying. I had watched it twice in a row. I'm like, these people, obviously, they're not very educated, but.
No, I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Different times.
Different times. People
indeed.
used to carry around swords and poke each other with them.
True.
That was a different time than this, too.
People used to go to bars and
very
have duels.
close time periods, but
very.
My next buy.
Yes, let's do it.
Is in this period.
Okay.
And that's Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, there's a lot of things I think that make Chris Godwin a buy. And he's a tricky player because there's going to be some probably teams that love Chris Godwin, don't think he's a buy. And there's going to be some teams that I think this really does kind of piggyback off the Tom Brady news. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't know who the quarterback's going to be there. Right. I don't know what's going on. They got Mike Evans. Mike Evans is even probably long for the team there as well.
I didn't realize that you were doing Chris Godwin. I think you switched that, didn't you? All right, well, go ahead. we can just do ours together. How about that? Mine's Mike Evans. My buy is Mike Evans.
That's fine.
All right.
I'm doing Chris Godwin. You do Mike Evans.
All right.
You support your cause. I'll support my cause.
Perfect.
I don't care who you're buying. This is who I'm buying.
Fine.
Myself's Chris Godwin.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's fine. I want to make an argument for
This
a
show
case.
has been so on point. Let's go.
You're talking about somebody who's 27 years old, right? So he's still got the youth. And last year he finished as wide receiver 19. He averaged 14.9 points per game. But he started week 1, but he hurt his hammy week 1. Didn't come back from that until week 4. From week 4 to week 18, Chris Godwin is wide receiver number 7 overall, averaging 15.5 points per game. And on top of that, he did all that only scoring 3 touchdowns on the year, which was his worst touchdown production his entire career besides his rookie year where he only had 1. So this was his 3 touchdowns was tied for the 75th best amongst all wide receivers and tight ends at the position. And like I said, he hasn't scored that amount of touchdowns in 5 years. He did this after tearing his ACL. And usually we see players the year after they have the ACL injury have that one big down year, like or off production.
They're working through some things, right? Still getting back. They're out there, but they're not all the way up.
God was on the record saying that too. He's like, I didn't feel 100% all year. Sure. I didn't trust my knee all year. And it's a redundant story, right? People are like, that's the biggest word. It's like, they don't trust that knee. They're scared to put the right amount of pressure on the knee, break out their brakes sometimes out of that knee. So
full go is a thing that you hear him say, like, I couldn't go full go all the time.
So for him to come out there when he came back and be wide receiver 7 overall, and this is a player that has produced with Jameis Winston at quarterback. So it can be done with anybody,
right?
Essentially. Chris Godwin is still young enough to offer that 3 to 4 year window for you at the position.
26 or 27? How old?
He's 27.
Okay.
He's going to be 27 this coming season?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe
I'll
he's
check.
27.
Yep, we can look.
He's 27 is what I have written down. Okay. So I don't know when he turns 28, but you still got 3 to 4 years of Chris Godwin at the position, and that's a championship caliber window. And what you give up for Chris Godwin is probably a mid first, right?
He's about to turn 27, so basically all of next season he'll be 27.
Yep.
So you easily got 4 to 5 years of Chris Godwin, honestly. And with this receiving class, it's a nice receiving class. You know, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson. That's probably like the top tier players you like at that receiver position.
Right.
But those are all, none of those guys are guaranteed to be like a wide receiver 1. Chris Godwin's a wide receiver 1. Mm-hmm. That's what he is.
I was going to say, this is probably the riskiest and most shallow wide receiver class we've had in 4 or 5 years.
So when you're looking at a receiver, and after Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, you're going to be looking at some of these receivers. Obviously, the running backs will get some jumps like Tajay Spears had an excellent Senior Bowl. Mm-hmm. You saw in the mock draft where we went in the 3rd round, the Dolphins. I tweeted out like that's an excellent spot.
Yep.
People argued back. I don't care what they argue about. You know,
Did people really argue with you?
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, how's that better than Philly?" I'm like, because it is, in my opinion.
You don't have to do with Jalen Hurts
run scheme. You know, like it's my own opinion.
It's a very running back friendly.
It's a very running back friendly opinion.
Ask Miles Sanders if Philly's the best spot.
It's a pretty damn good spot.
It's good.
He was in the top,
but he didn't get any touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Did he score touchdowns?
This year he finally
got some, but it's still not many. Miles Sanders did not have very many touchdowns.
He was in the top. I had the percentage written down of where he was in the red zone rush opportunities. He was actually in a pretty good percentile. I know Jalen Hurts ran for some too, but that's what Chris Godwin offers and brings to the table. You know, so when you're on the clock, say you're a middle of the road team, you need a receiver, right? And you're trying to get over that hump. Mm-hmm. Don't draft Quentin Johnson. Don't go from there. Even though it's a nice spot, trade for Chris Godwin. You should be able to acquire Chris Godwin for a mid first round pick, right? If you're pick 5, pick 6 around there, right. I know that might sound pricey.
I had more than I thought,
but that is not pricey whatsoever for a wide receiver 1. That's actually a home run. If you drafted Quentin Johnson or Jackson Smith and Jigba or Jordan Addison, and they give you 4 years of wide receiver 1 production, you would feel that's a home run pick. A home run pick. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're picking 3 or 4, and obviously you need a receiver here, like if that's a position you need to kind of get over that hump to take the next step, is this is a player that's going to help you take that next step. And that's what you're trying to do when you're pick 6, pick 7, is try to take that next step. Chris Godwin will elevate your team to that level into the playoffs. He's a wide receiver 1. His floor is wide receiver 2 production. Tampa Bay is most likely going to bring in, this team is built to win now, essentially. They'll cut Leonard Fournette, it'd be Rashad White there, maybe they bring in a guy or draft a guy there as well. But don't be surprised if a player like Jimmy Garoppolo ends up in Tampa Bay, following Tom's footsteps there, and is the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't be surprised if somebody comes in here and they bring in a veteran that's going to help this team, unless they blow it up and they trade away like Mike Evans or whatnot. But this team is built to win now, and Chris Godwin is the number one receiver on this team. And Tom Brady did not do him any favors last year. Tom Brady actually regressed a little bit out there. I mean, Godwin's yards per reception were his career worst, 9.9.
This was all going to be part of my argument as well. The offensive line was beat up right off the get go, and Tom Brady struggled throughout the whole season, just having enough time to throw the ball downfield. He wasn't stepping into his throws like he normally did. He was getting the kind of pressure that affected him right up the middle. I mean, when your center goes down and he's like a all-pro type of guy, it's going to be rough for a quarterback like Tom Brady, and it showed throughout all his numbers. So both those guys, I'll have the same, I guess, thing to say about Mike Evans. I guess I don't have to say it anymore.
Real quick pause in the action. Update on the poll. 10 minutes in.
Yeah.
We have 242 votes.
It's going quick.
Currently in last place, Rasheed Shaheed.
Told you.
But 19%. So a decent percent.
Decent.
Only 2% more, Isaiah Hodgins at 21%.
Unbelievable.
Then at 60%, Darnell Mooney.
It's because it's all Garrett's
It's
followers.
all Garrett followers.
Yeah, we have to
I literally said
the dodo
we
birds
are
out
having
there.
a debate on the pod. Who would you want most on your fantasy team? That was the only information they got.
But they're your followers. They know Mooney's your guy.
They know you. They're
just
not
know
there
you.
pussyfooting around this.
Just for that, I broke your...
Screw your mic stand.
Yeah, take that.
What?
You better hope I don't come to yours, Matt. What's coming next?
I'd like to see you get over here. I know you got headphones in and you get...
This thing's built just like Darnell Mooney. It's trash.
So anyway, I do like the Chris Godwin buy. I think his price is going to be a little bit higher than Mike Evans, and that's probably one of the reasons why I would go Mike Evans, a little bit cheaper. But I like the Godwin.
Real quick on both of those guys, because I could easily be talked into buying either one of them. What price tag are you willing to pay though?
I would pay a second for Mike Evans.
And that's what he's going for. So I went into the trade browser.
Matt hasn't gave his pitch yet for Mike Evans.
Sorta. He's given half of it.
I know. I feel like I have kind of given half of it away. Let me just run through it real fast.
Run through it.
Let me just run through it, and then we'll talk prices.
Light jog.
Just a light, quick jog. So
Sprint, please.
Silent J.
I'm more of a
yog.
I'm more of a yogger
I
myself.
want to hear butt clap.
So anyway, last year finished as wide receiver 11 on the season, and I think that probably snuck up on a lot of people. Throughout the year, he was closer to like a wide receiver 2. He was wide receiver 23 before the last week of the season where he exploded and went berserk.
Yeah, thanks for nothing.
48, he had like a 48 point outburst.
Like 2 touchdowns all year, and then he had 3 in the last week.
Yes,
when he got me eliminated the round before.
Yes, so
I'm not bitter.
So it might be rubbing some people the wrong way, and they might want to get rid of him for a second round draft pick. But real back to real life here. We were talking about Brady having an off year. And that trickled down to everybody. I mean, this was not a great year for Mike Evans. Obviously, he's 29 years old now. He's going to be 30 by the time the season starts. He turns 30 in August. So the price on him is just plummeting down to I think make him a buy. I'm not one of these guys that's had a lot of shares of Mike Evans in my dynasty career, so I haven't had him. I've seen these big outbursts before and kind of propel him up, but he's not as inconsistent as he was this past season on a normal basis. And, the offensive line, some of those guys are going to be getting healthy. They're going to do some stuff to fix that. If he does stay on Tampa, I do expect them to bring in somebody, because if he stays, I do think they're going to be a win now team. If they decide to blow it up, he's a perfect person to go to a contender. He's 30 years old. He's a very skilled guy. He knows what it takes to get deep into the playoff and win the championship. And he's not going to be a guy that just settles for the money at this point. He's going to be going somewhere with a good quarterback, because that's what you have to have
title
to be like an actual real contender.
Bills.
So he's a guy that he's going to do better, I think, regardless next year, just because the offensive line in front of him is going to be better if he stays in Tampa. If he leaves, he's going to be going to a better situation. And he's always produced. He's going to keep producing. He still has juice left in his legs. And that last game, that outburst where he scored 3 touchdowns is proof enough for me to say this guy still has it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
For somebody who's had a lot, I have a lot of Mike Evans, not a lot, but I have a couple Mike Evans shares, and I've had them for a long time as well. What I love about Evans is, and what's nice is Evans has kind of been like, he's had this buy window around him for like
3 years.
3 years, yeah. Right? Like
but it was at like a first, you still had to give a first.
It's
dipped below that now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I love the price tag as a contender. If you get him for, say, a second and a third or 2 seconds, like he's worth that. Because what Mike Evans, what I really love about Mike Evans from a dynasty aspect is he's been very consistent, right? Like you've read, everybody's heard a stat, like he's the first wide receiver to score 1,000 yards receiving for like 9 years straight. Like he's done that because he's a very consistent player. He's a red zone threat. He can go up and get the ball. He knows how to play the position where he knows he doesn't have the speed to win, but he has a technique to win.
Right.
So as a receiver, he's consistently giving you those double-digit points. And are his days of being a wide receiver 1 probably over? Probably. Will I say 100%? Definitely not, because he can't produce in the red zone. That's where he's usually produced.
He could drop a 10 touchdown season in the right situation easily next year. And I saw him consistently going for around a second-round draft pick. There was one trade in there which blew my mind. It was Keenan Allen and Mike Evans for 2 second-round draft picks. I was like, you got to be – I mean, that's like – you're in a championship window. That's like a championship gold mine right there. Yeah, sure. Here are my 2 seconds that I'll never use in my window when I'm going to, actually win a championship for 2 players that, will likely be, filling in bye weeks or start in my starting lineup week in and week out.
And that's a good tip, Matt, for this draft specifically, because, as we've been hyping up and talking about this draft class for a long time, what this draft class offers in 23 is a lot of depth. When we say this is a really good class, it doesn't mean picks 1 through 12 is you're going to absolute stud at every single pick, but you're getting very quality players in this draft all the way through the second round. Mm-hmm. So the pick 24, you're going to definitely in a super flex league, you're going to get quality players that add startability to your roster. Now, are they going to be wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s, running back 2s, tight end 1s? Yeah, but those are players that you need. Those are rosters and spots you need to fill on your roster, especially to get production from rookies. So, and some of those will excel their draft slot, and they'll end up being way better in household names that we don't suspect. But for the most part, that class is going to be pretty solid. Like Matt said, is when you're a contender, you're not looking for somebody to come around and develop. You're looking to try and win now. These championship windows are very small, and they change quickly in Dynasty.
They do.
2 to 3 years. They're called 2 to 3 year windows for a reason, because the whole league shape of your league, as I said 3 times, changes in 3 years. The whole dynamics of that league change in 3 years. So that window is open for a very small time. So what's nice about this class is, come to the back end from pick 2-8 to 2-12, there's going to be quality players there people excited about. The Luke Musgraves, the Dalton Kincaids, the running backs, the receivers that you'd mentioned. The Josh Downs, the Zay Flowers. People are going to be excited about those players. And if it puts you in a position to get a Mike Evans, a Keenan Allen, that's something you can't pass up. If you take somebody who's a wide receiver 2 and you're putting them in a wide receiver 3 spot or your flex spot, that's a championship caliber move. And and at this point, you don't worry about like how many years they got left. You hope that they produce for you in 2023. Yeah. And that's all your concern is.
Anything after that's gravy.
Right? Yeah, your window becomes almost like a redraft league. And that's what those draft picks are there for. And you can't get too caught up on those of, what can Zay Flowers be in 2 years? What can Dalton Kincaid be in 3 years? That does not matter, because your team's going to be a completely different shape in 3 years, because you're a little bit older, because you're in championship caliber window and you're trying to win now. And you can't let that opportunity slip through your fingers. And the one thing you cannot be worried about is your draft capital.
Right.
And if it takes a second and a third, that's what it takes to get that kind of player.
Could you imagine if you had him on either one of those guys, Mike Evans or Keenan Allen, on your team where DeAndre Hopkins went down and you weren't forced to look at Josh Reynolds? You had one of those guys in your holster.
And
what
he had a boom week.
Right.
I would have won the championship.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But it didn't happen.
Right.
And what would it have cost me to win a championship? It would have cost me a second round pick.
Right. Well, and the nice part is it works either way. If you're a rebuild team, I'm okay with getting a second for Mike Evans.
Yeah.
You know, it's a deep class we just talked about. Like it's going to work on both sides. I think it's an easy trade for you to make as a contender because I think that is a pretty fair price point.
Sure.
Is, you know, the mid early second round pick. I think that's a pretty fair price point. But as a contender, I would make that all day, and specifically hoping that he does end up on a championship contender, because right now there's only a handful of quarterbacks that could come to Tampa and give him even close to the numbers that he got before. So I'm hoping that he does end up on a new team this year.
I think the Bills would be a good fit. A lot of teams, you know, there's a lot of teams out there that could use a Mike Evans. Let's put it that way. Garrett, who's your last guy here for a buy?
Last guy, I had talked about him in one of my YouTube videos last year. And I remember, and if this was your comment, then, you know, I'm talking to you apparently. But I said that I wasn't in on Drake London last year in the startup because of where you had to take him. He was consistently going between wide receiver 11 and 13 in a startup. I said, that's just too high. I'm going to wait a year, and then I'm going to buy Drake London, because buying him right now, expecting him to be a wide receiver 1 right away, is a tall task with Marcus Mariota as your quarterback. What we saw last year was, yeah, that was too tall of a task. He's not quite there yet. But we saw a lot of really good flashes. And now that the price has dipped, and I'm seeing him consistently going in somewhere between, the earliest I saw was late 3rd, the latest I saw was mid 5th. So going in that range of startups, and he's a very acquirable asset, especially in a class where we talked about it, the wide receiver is the most shallow of all of the positions. Deep at quarterback, deep at running back, deep at tight end. Wide receiver is probably the most shallow of all of the groups. One of the things that I saw that especially encouraged me was I had seen, and let's see, of course, now my Twitter reset. I wanted to give the guy credit for tweeting it out. Of course, it all reset my timeline, but I'll give him credit tomorrow on Twitter. But Drake London last year had the second highest target rate out of any receiver, any rookie receiver in history. Second highest.
Wow.
He also had the 6th highest PFF grade of any rookie receiver of all time. Now, PFF hasn't been doing it since like the 80s or anything like that, but still, we've had a lot of good receivers come out in the PFF era. 6th highest. So 2 metrics that tend to be very sticky. Guys that get strong target shares, because I am a firm believer that targets are earned. So a guy that got a lot of targets and a guy that put up a good PFF score shows me that this is somebody that's going to be a very talented wide receiver for a long time. This team is also in a position to potentially draft their future quarterback. We'll have to see how the board shakes out.
Absolutely.
There's no guarantee in that.
Lamar Jackson's been a hot name rumored to go there.
Yep. There's trade rumors. There's free agent rumors. And why wouldn't you? You have Kyle Pitts and Drake London there as a quarterback. That's pretty appealing. Those are 2 young assets. So I do think within the next year, hopefully within the next 2 years, they will get a quarterback upgrade. They will get a legitimate quarterback there. And when that happens, Drake London has a legitimate wide receiver 1 profile. He's got the build. He's got the ability to do things in the red zone. He gets open. Like, he is a legitimate asset at receiver. He's young. He's only in his 2nd year. But similar to what's going on with Kyle Pitts, people were disappointed specifically in the middle part of the year. There were a lot of games in the middle part of the year where it was 1 catch for 9 yards, 3 catches for 29 yards.
Monster first game.
Yeah.
He had monster first 3 games. And then his last 4 games were really good as well. It was that lull in the season. And by that point, chances are, if you had Drake London, you weren't in the playoffs anyway.
No, absolutely not.
So you don't even factor in what he did in the playoffs, because they didn't help your team at all. People forget how talented he is. They forget how much he did as a rookie. And I think he is one of my favorite buys. He's probably the most expensive of all the people we've talked about, but I think more than worth it.
Did he ever earn 12 targets in a game?
I can tell you right now. Yes, he did. Okay. Week 2, he had 12 targets, 8 receptions for 86 yards.
So I think that's what Isaiah Hodgins did week 16.
So
yeah.
He also did it week 13.
Target share, baby.
He also did it week 13.
I was in my back of my head just the whole time.
Prove my point. Target share.
And 11.
Just my whole time.
Darnell Mooney's done very good with target share.
Listen, you could take a list. You could take the picture and put up the picture of every quarterback in the NFL, all 31 teams, take out Atlanta and their backup quarterback, and you could throw a dart on. Actually, you know what? You could take all 32 teams, 31 teams, and put their backups on the board and throw a dart on there, and odds are it's going to land on a better quarterback than Marcus Mariota from throwing the football. So no matter what you bring into Atlanta, it's going to be an upgrade. There. And you're right. Yep. He's a very talented player. It's a reason he went so high in the NFL draft. He had, like Garrett said, I read the same metrics on Drake London after the season, and he's one of my favorite targets in like startups. Or via trade, you're right. If you're going to trade for Drake London, it's going to be expensive. But the down season could put you in position to trade when you're at 1-6 and 1-7, and people are in the new love for the new teams with, again, Quentin Johnson.
I'll say this right now. I would easily take him over any receiver in this class right now.
I would take him over every receiver in this class right now as well.
Easily. So if you have to give the one, in a 1 QB, if you have to give the 1-3, I would give the 1-3 in a heartbeat to get Drake London.
I would give 1-3 for Drake London as well.
I would even get to, and I'll say keep this in one quarterback. I would be willing to give 2 mid to late firsts.
I will wait to see where Jackson Smith and Jigba goes before I make that determination.
Okay.
That's fair.
And he could be very good as well, but I know Drake London is good. I think JSN will be very good too.
Yeah.
But I know.
And there's other good receivers. I mean, Jalen Hyatt, like you said. I mean, Lance Zierlein, who a guy who I respect an absolute
he's done great.
ton. Yep. Like he's probably my favorite scout out there right now. Has Jalen Hyatt as his number 1 receiver in the draft.
Bold.
Yeah, and I love the he put. If you go on there, check
that
out.
That guy's fast, man. He's super fast.
Check out his Twitter thread. He put a Twitter thread on why Jalen Hyatt is his number 1 receiver today. Today he did it, and he makes some really good points. And go back to the previous class of how you can't teach size and speed.
For the record, though, I said I would give like 2 mid to late first to get him.
Yeah.
You probably don't even have to. Drake London, 24 first, not even 23, and a 5th. Drake London and Matt Corral, it's in a super flex, so whatever. But 23 first and 23 fourth. Drake London for James Cook, Chark, and a 2nd. So, I mean, for a young, talented receiver, he's not that difficult to acquire.
It's my favorite move.
I've said meow
right now.
Yeah, I've said this on the show for 9 years straight, and it holds true today. My favorite thing in Dynasty to do is trade for the guy that got drafted really high in your draft last year, the Drake Londons, the Jameson Williams. Same thing. I'll take Jameson Williams ahead of a lot of these guys. That didn't produce year 1, and people need that year 1 production, and then give a later draft pick for him today, right? Where their value drops. It's a best thing to do for these rookies is wait a year. Wait a year, because 65% of them are going to see value decrease, right? Because everybody wants a new hot shiny toy. So Drake London, I think, is a fantastic buy. If I can get him anywhere for a first 23 first outside the top 3 picks, I'm all over it. Yeah. Super flex, I'd be a little bit more hesitant being top 3. Obviously,
it'd be more like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I want the quarterbacks there. I want, again, I can't wait to see where Anthony Richardson goes because that dude,
he could go there.
That dude's tape is,
it's fun.
It's fun. It really, I told myself, I have to come away with 1 share of Anthony Richardson in my Superflex leagues. I don't know how I'm gonna come about it. Like I'm getting 1 share. Like no matter what.
If he ends up going top 10, that's gonna be tough.
Like he could easily be like the Lamar Jackson when Lamar Jackson came out. I'm like, we made
sure.
I remember to this day selling Lamar Jackson to our audience, and kind of using Mike Vick as an example of what he could be and like why is quarterback 1. And it's funny because it all came true. If you go back and find that podcast and me telling you why you should draft Lamar Jackson and where the value was in Superflex. And same thing, we're like, hey, in Superflex leagues like this, you should take him high.
Yeah.
I know he's a huge risk, but that sure panned out. So love Drake London, think he's a great buy. Kyle Pitts probably falls into the
same category.
There's a league I've been pestering this guy, which I know he won't trade him to me because his team's name is Up Pitts Creek. But I consistently, I just make a trade. He denies everyone. I just keep consistently making trades for Kyle Pitts on there. You know what I mean? Like his team's not
all
good.
All it takes is one day him to accidentally hit accept.
But keep poking till that starts to get hurt real quick.
Grass is green, sky is blue. Rich sent me another trade offer for Kyle Pitts, and it's a day.
But I mean, he falls in the same category as Drake London as a buy, right?
Yes, sir.
These value drops of where, and you could pinpoint why the value dropped, right? It wasn't the player. It was everything around the player that was bad.
Exactly.
So those are the best buys.
I don't know. I know we're talking an NFC, but Garrett broke form and did an NFC last week. So
to balance it out,
back to the AFC, like Elijah Moore is another perfect example of a guy that He played well his rookie season. Things were just not coming together at all with him and Zach Wilson last year. I mean, who knows if Zach Wilson will be back next year or not, but I still believe in that talent, and I think that he is going to be able to outperform kind of where he is valued right now in the future. So I would go out and make a really cheap trade offer for a guy like that as well.
It's good to go back and look at past last year's hype trains and look for value dips and see why that value dipped and then pounce, right? Like, because that's what, again, like in Dynasty, you're always looking for value, right? Like you're just looking for value. You're looking for good players with high upside. You're looking to fill out a really good starting lineup. You know, depth is great, definitely when you're trying to rebuild, but as you inch closer to a championship caliber team, like you want to be able to put together a really good starting lineup because it becomes way more redraft at that point, right? Like the draft picks don't matter as much. All the depth doesn't matter. You'll trade away depth. Like you're just trying to get that good starting lineup for week 17 to host the hardware. So players like that to see value dips to Kyle Pitts, to Drake London, Elijah Moore, another really good one, Matt, that you can get into your roster that hold that upside. They're a little bit cheaper that also offer the youth. When you're a championship caliber team, that's how you get it because you usually don't have draft picks. Like you have to make these moves that offer the upside. Isaiah Hodgins, the Rashid, maybe the Moonies.
60% of the people would say yes.
70%. As of right now, that was past. That's old Twitter. So that's it. We'll be back next week. New show.
Probably higher.
No more buys, no more sells.
It is. It's 63 now.
Let me know when it gets to 69.
I'm not impressed.
I'm not sold until then.
Yeah. That just means Isaiah Hodgins and Rasheed is just even better, a bigger buy because nobody even wants them. So we'll be back next week talking Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Adios.